Are you a magic zoomer or a magic boomer? Old magic cards just hit differently, you know? Back in the day we had crows that would storm you, toads that were chubby, and fiends that were phantasmal. Let's cast a time walk back to 1995 and crack some packs of some vintage magic cards. Hey everyone, it's VM Campos Magic Fan, Vintage Magic Fan. I've got a crack-a-pack for you here where I've gone completely mental and I'm going to open up 6 booster packs of some classic magic cards from the 90s, back in the good old days. I'm going to open up some packs of Ice Age and Alliances. I was in high school during this time and it was great because I had not a care in the world except to get magic cards. And I guess to graduate high school. But anyway, let's open up these packs and maybe pull some big bucks cards. And at the very least, if you don't get anything good, it's going to be a great nostalgia trip. Let's get started. Alright, the very first thing we see is the classic borders of the old days. It's the brown border artifact. Ooh, this card right here. This is the card that broke modern formats. But back in the day, it was a horrible card. It was trying to do Demonic Tutor, but worse. But now in CEDH, this will destroy your opponent in one turn. Onyx Talisman. Oh, this was a cycle of cards that was horrible. You'd pay mana to untap stuff, but only when a certain kind of spell was cast. Yeah, things were weird back then, but just look at this amazing art. Sandra Evernham, I love you. Here's another amazing bit of art, Drew Tucker, and this is more representational than his art often was. It was way more abstract sometimes. This time you can actually tell what you're looking at. Anyway, Mind Whip. There we go, Chub Toad. Check out this amazing rhyme. Chub Toad at the door. Run away quick or you'll run no more. A traditional children's rhyme. Hilarious. Ray of Erasure, instantly mill yourself for the opponent, and then you draw a card with a slow trip. Just this beautiful art. Songs of the Damned with a single black mana. You can make lots of mana when you've got dead things in the graveyard. Krovikian Sorcerer looks very sus, and you'll be even more sus when you draw and discard cards. There was this great lore at the time, and this is where Zur the Enchanter debuted. Soulburn, this was an interesting card. You could pump it up with more red or black mana and deal damage and gain life. It was like a life drain effect. And that art is just very evocative. It just reminds me of playing Magic back in the 90s. Very cool Rob Alexander art. Oh yes, the Scaled Worm. Now this is some of the most beautifulest art that I've ever seen. That's not a word, but Daniel Gellon created some amazing art with the Scaled Worm. It's a big ol' worm. I love it. Shield Bearer. Oh, banding? What's banding? It's basically paragraphs of text to make your creatures stronger together, sort of. The less you know about it, the better. Earthlore, another Drew Tucker art. See if you can find the hidden creature within this artwork in the middle of the trees. Oh, and then you get to tap things and make them stronger if they're blocking. It was weird. Dig that 0 casting cost ability. Back in the day, the goblins were really silly and they were not really solidified in what their style was, because purple goblins, we don't have those anymore. Plus a flying goblin? And it's only good if you're doing snow-covered lands. Some beautiful artwork here, The Mistfolk by Quentin Hoover. Spoiler alert, Quentin Hoover is my favorite magic artist of all time, and I don't care what the card does, but it's always amazing. And finally, Portent. Single blue mana for sorcery to look at some cards, shuffle them, put them back, do all that fun stuff, and then draw a card at the next turn. That's known as a slow trip. Alright, those are some great cards to start off with. Let's go with pack number 2. Soldevi Machinist. Now back in the day I used to call this the Soldevi Machinist, because I don't know, I was dumb. But anyway, the Machinist is still a card that's printed nowadays. It gives you colorless mana to work with your artifacts. Pretty cool. I love this little tiger. L.A. Williams made a very cute tiger jumping through the air, which will then is translated as making a creature fly and drawing you a card somehow. That's a good kitty. Wings of Aether. Okay, like here's the multicolored cards, and they used to be in this amazing gold borders like this. You can give your creature flying in first strike, and a +1 for Azorius mana. Pretty cool. Ooh, Yokelhops, the card that no one knows how to pronounce. And this amazing epic in which you destroy all artifacts, creatures, and lands for 6 mana. Wow, that is epic. That is a red temper tantrum, if I ever heard one. Rhyme Dryad. Heather Hudson, amazing art. This one sticks with me all of these years later. This amazing 1/2 Dryad that is Forest Walk, snow-covered Forest Walk, which nowadays is kind of worthless. Burnt Offering. This is a little shout-out to that famous movie, The Wicker Man. No, not the Nicolas Cage version. Go back and watch the original 70s version. Anyway, sacrifice your own creatures, get some mana, do some shenanigans. Good old giant growth with a giant bee or wasp or whatever, but you don't get a sense of how big it is. No scale, you know? Mind Ravel. Ooh, I loved these old effects where you would make the opponent discard cards, and this is just such a beautiful piece of artwork with just this literal mind unraveling. Thank you, Mark Tedin. Your art always grosses me out. I love it. Again, I love these old goblins and orcs. They don't really print orcs anymore, but back in the day they had orcs. And just check out this hilarious farmer with a little piggy, and even the pig has hair. It's just hilarious. The effect sucks, though. Ooh, yeah, Kaya Folio art. Part of the duo of Phil and Kaya Folio, and there was actually a cycle of these cards, Hydroblast and Pyroblast, which are still really cool cards nowadays and perfect in Pauper. More goblins. They do weird things. You pay lots of mana to do stuff. Unblockability, destroy stuff. It's interesting. And it's just got some classic artwork from back in the day by Jeff Menges. Oh, Norit. I remember this card just for the artwork. I don't remember what it does, and there's like a novel in there, so I'm going to fall asleep before I explain what it does. But that art just, that's been in my mind for decades. Mark Rabe art. Just such an evocative piece of art. They don't make magic art like this anymore, and I wish they still did. Just look at it. Tell me in the comments. This is amazing art, isn't it? Okay, wait a minute. This I have to say is my most favorite art of all time of Magic. It's a Quentin Hoover piece. It's a beautiful unicorn, the Adakar unicorn. It's just beautiful art. Now, the ability, it's a mana dork, but it's an ability only for cumulative upkeep, which is very weird, and I would have loved this little pony to just be a regular mana dork. I would love to own the original art of that work. Shambling Strider. I have a great memory of this card, and it's not particularly a good card with a +1/-1 ability, but I just have a great memory of that. I also have a great memory of Dark Ritual. That's my second favorite Magic card of all time. Hymn to Torak would be my favorite card of all, but it's way too mean. Anyway, classic mana acceleration in black. Love it. Now let's move over to the Alliance booster packs. In here we might get a Force of Will, one of the most valuable uncommons in Magic. Multicolored card with an epic bit of art by Christopher Rush. It's a 0/3 with a huge wall of text, and it's not worth it at all, but to break this card out in modern gameplay is kind of a cool thing, even though you're kind of falling behind by playing this card nowadays. But just dig that epic pose by this badass paladin. False Demise. This is interesting. You can enchant your opponent's creature, and when it dies, you get it on your side, but you have to kill the thing first, so it's kind of a lot of investment for an end result, but it's kind of interesting. Shield Sphere. This card tripped me out so bad in the day because it was a 0 mana cost 0/6 wall that got weaker every time it blocked. So maybe good for limited, but nothing else really nowadays. Ooh, Soul Grail. So instead of Soul Ring, which is way too powerful, you can have Soul Grail. 3 mana, make a mana of any color. You pick the color and it sticks with it the rest of the game. I kind of still play this in my vintage Commander decks just for the fun of it. Elvish Ranger. Really cool art from a really shit artist. It's a big ol' 4/1 with no other abilities. Platinum's Legacy was a very interesting card back in the day. It was just way too confusing for us, where we didn't really think about advanced gameplay, but now it can kind of do interesting things. Here's the card that I always mispronounce. Soldave Adnate, Adante. Anyway, you sacrifice creatures and you get mana. It's cool. Yes, the meme that will not die, Stormcrow. Agent of Stromgald. I would not want to run in her in a dark alley. It's a mana dork in red that makes black mana? Wow. Aether Glider, it's a 2-mana, it's a flyer. This was relatively recently reprinted in the last, I don't know, 3 or 5 years, but it first debuted way back in Alliances. Awesome presence, awesome art. What does it do? Who knows? But you're going to be in awe of that art nonetheless. It's sort of a propaganda, I guess. Astrolabe, this is interesting. 3 whole mana, and then pay 1 more mana to make 2 mana of any one color, then you draw a card. It's really interesting. A lot of shenanigans that can happen, I guess. And now another pack of alliances. Ooh, I remember this one. The art on this is just freaking epic, wouldn't you say? The Stromgald Spy, Zach Pulchinski. Here's an artist that hasn't really made any magic art in a long time, and its ability is really interesting. If it deals damage, it really messes with the opponent. Now they've got to play with their hands revealed. Oh, I remember this art. It was really creepy. Look at this elf just covered in scorpions, and he looks asleep, but he's just so dead. That art really has a strong connection in my memory. Here's another False Demise to add to the pile. Omen of Fire. This is some epic art that really destroys blue players and white players. Back in the day, the color hate was strong in Magic. And this has also got some great story points about the war criminal that General Varchild is. Oh yeah, I remember this art. And the card is really cool too. So Anson Maddox created this amazing skeleton that can regenerate with first strike. It'll block creatures all day long, no problem. Green card that lets you gain life if you pay lots of mana. Wonderful Greg Simonson art of a cool little bird that can get stronger with flying in first strike, but you can only do it once, so it's kind of limiting. This was, I think, one of the first times they started to play with that concept of doing something, but really only once, and now they do it more often. Oh yeah, another great Quentin Hoover artwork. This is the Gorilla Chieftains. 4 mana, and then it's a 3/3 that can regenerate. It can keep coming back to life. I guess the flavor of that is that it's a big old tribe and they keep coming back, I guess. Richard Kane Ferguson art. My second favorite Magic artist of all time, and look at this just epic art in a counter spell that then draws cards. Guerrilla Tactics. No, not Gorilla Tactics. Guerrilla Tactics. It's different. Look it up. And this card played with, what if a card gets discarded out of my hand? Well, it would then damage the opponent. Wonderful John Matson art of Guerrilla Berserkers with Rampage 2, an extinct mechanic that made your creatures stronger the more they block. If it's blocked by 2 or more creatures, it gets +2/+2 for every creature beyond those 2. This can get huge. Plus it's got trample, so it can get incredibly big. Do some combat tricks and force the opponent to block. This can be a huge monkey. Varchild's Crusader, it's a 3/2, becomes unblockable, but then it destroys itself somehow. This is some Mark Poole art. I never really had this card back in the day, but now I opened a copy for my collection. Next pack of alliances, come on, give me a Force of Will. Well, this is from the same cycle in that you would pitch a card and do the effect for a cheaper cost, but it's not a good effect at all. Maybe back in the day when this was a 1v1 game, it kind of did stuff, but nowadays it's just not worth it. Every color had that pitch cycle. Force of Will was the most famous one. This one was less so. This is a really interesting card. It would let you bring things back from the graveyard with haste and then decayed. So something that was created more than 25 years ago, the first proto-version of it. I remember this card. It was so epic. When my brother would play a huge creature, I'd pay 2 mana and just bury it, which means it couldn't regenerate. Royal Decree, cumulative upkeep card. It does amazing things, but you have to keep paying more mana every turn to keep it on the battlefield. First 1 white mana, then 2, then 4, and then it just goes on and on. But it would damage black and red players. Again, the color hate back in the day was really strong. I kind of miss it, but I guess it's too mean nowadays. Like discard and land destruction. Alright, this is interesting. This is a 0/1 flyer that if it is unblocked, it gives a poison counter. And yeah, poison, the old version of toxic, in this little annoying mosquito. Give it a giant growth to accelerate the death. Oh yeah, I remember this card, Scott Kirshner's Phantasmal Fiend. I just love that it was semi-transparent. It's a big ol' 1/5 that can give itself +1/-1, and then you play blue mana to switch it around to be a 5/1? It was really interesting. Weird effects back in the day. Here's an alternate art for Gorilla Chieftain. That's what they used to do back in the day, do alternate arts. And Quentin Hoover art, I can't say no to that. Oh, another one of these Adantenes. Add it to the pile. Ooh, another Stormcrow with different art. Oh, there we go. So this was one of these weird cards that no one knew what to do with because you'd have to exile your own stuff? I guess it's deck thinning, and then you get a card draw. So I guess you can exile 3 lands to get them out of your library and then draw a card? I'm sure there are big brain plays that I don't understand. Oh yeah, and F-Turfs. I remember this Andy Rusu art. It kind of felt like, I don't know, like medieval woodcuts or something. Anyway, Veteran's Voice. You enchant one of your creatures to then give another creature a +2/+1. That's interesting. Oh, another awesome presence. 2 of them is not so awesome. Alright, let's wrap up that pack and open another one. We got some Kaya Folio art, now we've got Phil Folio art. They were a great duo that made some cartoony artwork that I also enjoy a lot. There was just so much comedy in Phil's art especially, that you would want to play the cards just for the comedy and not even what it does. But anyway, you give your creature +0/+2 for every 2 mana that you pay. But wait a minute, non-attacking, non-blocking, is that right? So for no reason at all, you make your creature have a bigger butt, but it's not even going to block or attack? Is that a typo? Soldier of Fortune, do some impulsive red shenanigans, shuffle your library every time you want, or make your opponent shuffle their library for no reason without knowing what's there? I guess if you know what the opponent's card is going to be, you make them shuffle, but then who knows what else they'll get. Ah, chaos. Another Reprisal. I wish I got the alternate art. Oh, Misfortune. I remember this art. It was so cool. Ron Spencer made someone very unlucky. You pay lots of mana to give your opponent a choice, and I don't really think any choice is that great, but I'd play this card just for the hilarious artwork. And the secret message. Here's another banding creature that features a really cute doggo. Oh, there's the alternate art for this Swamp Mosquito. Gotta catch 'em all. Another Agent of Strongall, the same badass knight. Fevered Strength, give your creature +2/+0 instantly and then draw a card. Very nice combat trick. Kind of expensive, but this was at a time that Magic was kind of getting depowered a bit. I do not remember this card at all, what it does, except that it has some fun art with a cute little cat thing or something. Stormcrow, the alternate art. And this is some of the most epic flavor text. Watch for it. Right on its tail feathers will be a storm from your nightmares. Okay. Ooh, I love this art. If you look carefully, you see that there are actually 2 skulls in the art that I never really noticed until seeing the art again. And what's up with this character with a really long tongue? I bet they're popular. Now the last card, come on Force of Will, come on Force of Will, come on. Oh, Soldevi Sentry. Yeah, it's a 1/1 that regenerate, and then your opponent draws a card. This is one of the worst cards that has ever existed in Magic. But great art. And that's it. That was my crack-a-pack of 6 vintage cards from Ice Age block from the 90s. A lot of interesting cards, a few cards that may be playable nowadays, many that are not, but a ton of memories, a ton of great artwork. And I'd like to hear from you. Which was your favorite card that I cracked? Which card would you still add to your deck, either for funsies or for real? Tell me in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that good stuff. If you really liked the video, consider pressing the join button here in YouTube or heading over to Patreon to keep the channel funded, to keep it running, to be a part of it all. To help out one of your favorite content creators, which is me, VM Campos. Be one of the few, the proud, the ones that actually contribute. I would really appreciate it. If you can't quite do so at the moment, no worries. Simply share my content to get the word out. I would really appreciate it. This has been VM Campos, and I'll see you in the next video.